Welcome to English Mystery Channel, where we make learning English fun and easy through mystery stories. The Widow's Secret. Chapter 1: The Unseen Shadows. Amelia Stenson sat in her living room, wrapped in a blanket of sorrow. The soft light of the late afternoon filtered through the heavy curtains, casting long shadows on the floor. Her husband's sudden and mysterious death had left her world shattered. Only a week ago, George had been alive, full of life and secrets. Now, he was gone, leaving behind a void that seemed impossible to fill. The funeral had been a blur of faces and voices, none of which Amelia could truly remember. The only thing that stood out was the cold, unyielding reality that she was now alone. Friends and family had offered their condolences, but nothing could ease the aching emptiness inside her. As the days passed, Amelia found herself drawn to George's study, a room he had always kept private. She had rarely entered it while he was alive, respecting his space and the need for a place to work undisturbed. Now, it felt like a portal to the past, a place where she might find a piece of him still lingering. One afternoon, when the weight of grief became too much to bear, Amelia ventured into the study. The air was thick with the scent of old books and leather, a smell she had always associated with George. She ran her fingers over the polished wood of his desk, her heart heavy with memories. Her eyes fell on a small, locked drawer. George had always kept the key hidden, and Amelia had never questioned it. But now, curiosity and a strange sense of urgency compelled her to find it. She searched through the drawers, her fingers trembling with a mix of fear and anticipation. Finally, beneath a pile of old letters, she found the key. With a deep breath, she unlocked the drawer and pulled it open. Inside, she found a stack of documents tied together with a worn, leather cord. The papers were old, some yellowed with age, and as Amelia untied the cord, her hands began to shake. The first document was a birth certificate, not George's, but someone else's. The name on it was unfamiliar, and the date of birth didn't match George's. Confused, Amelia set it aside and picked up the next paper. It was a passport, but the photograph was of George. The name, however, was different, James Redmond. Amelia's heart raced. She flipped through the other documents, finding more passports, IDs, and even a marriage certificate, all bearing George's photograph, but with different names and details. Panic gripped her as she realized that her husband had been living a double life. Who was George? Or was his name even George? Amelia's mind swirled with questions. She had loved him, trusted him, and shared a life with him for 20 years. But now, it seemed she had been living with a stranger. Determined to uncover the truth, Amelia gathered the documents and spread them out on the desk. She examined each one carefully, looking for clues. The dates and places listed were scattered across different countries, spanning several decades. It was as if George, or whoever he was, had been a different person in each of those places. Amelia felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could he have kept this from her? Why had he needed so many identities? Her grief began to morph into something else, determination. She would find out the truth, no matter what it took. As she delved deeper into the papers, she found a small notebook tucked at the bottom of the drawer. It was filled with cryptic notes, addresses, and names. The handwriting was George's, but the content was completely foreign to her. One name appeared repeatedly: Victor. Amelia had never heard George mention anyone named Victor. Who was he? A friend? An enemy? The questions continued to mount as she flipped through the pages. Among the notes, she found a key taped to one of the pages. It was small, likely for a safety deposit box. But where? There was no indication of the bank or location. Amelia's frustration grew, but she knew this key was important. For the first time since George's death, Amelia felt a spark of purpose. She needed to follow the trail he had left behind, to uncover the secrets he had kept from her. Her grief would have to wait, there was too much at stake. Chapter 2: A Web of Lies. The following morning, Amelia decided to visit the bank where George had held an account. She had a hunch that the key might belong to a safety deposit box there. The bank was a short walk from their home, a grand old building with marble floors and high ceilings. As she entered, the cold air and the distant chatter of the tellers made her feel small and out of place. She approached the counter and asked to speak with the bank manager. After a few minutes of waiting, a tall man in a dark suit appeared. He introduced himself as Mr. Collins, a man with a warm smile but sharp eyes. Mrs. Stenson, I'm so sorry for your loss, he began, his voice gentle. How can I assist you today? Amelia took a deep breath and handed him the key. I believe this might belong to a safety deposit box. It was my husband's. Mr. Collins examined the key and nodded. Yes, this is indeed a key to one of our safety deposit boxes. If you could provide me with some identification, I'll check our records. Amelia handed him her ID, her heart pounding in her chest. She waited anxiously as Mr. Collins disappeared into the back room. When he returned, his expression had changed. There was a hint of surprise, maybe even concern, in his eyes. Mrs. Stenson, we do have a safety deposit box registered under your husband's name. However, it appears that he accessed it only once, many years ago. Would you like to see the contents? Amelia nodded, her mouth dry. She followed Mr. Collins to a private room where he brought out a small, unassuming metal box. He placed it on the table in front of her and handed her the key. With trembling hands, Amelia unlocked the box. Inside, there was only a single envelope, yellowed with age and sealed with wax. Her fingers traced the edges of the envelope before she carefully broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. The letter was addressed to James Redmond, the name from one of the passports. As she read the letter, her eyes widened in shock. James. If you are reading this, it means I am no longer in this world. You know what needs to be done. The package must be delivered to Victor without delay. Trust no one, not even those closest to you. Burn this letter after reading. V. Amelia's hands shook as she finished reading. The letter was brief but filled with implications. Who was V? And what was this package that needed to be delivered to Victor? Her thoughts raced as she tried to make sense of everything. George had never mentioned anyone named Victor, nor had he ever spoken of any secret packages. The letter seemed to confirm that George, or James, as she now had to consider him, had been involved in something far more dangerous than she could have imagined. Ignoring the instruction to burn the letter, Amelia carefully folded it and placed it back in the envelope. She needed to find Victor. Whoever he was, he might hold the answers to the questions that plagued her. But where to start? The notebook she had found in the study contained addresses and names, but they were scattered across different cities and countries. It was clear that George had lived a life she knew nothing about, one filled with secrets and lies. Amelia decided to start with the most recent address listed in the notebook. It was in London, only a short train ride away. She packed a small bag and left a note for her sister, who had been checking in on her since George's death, explaining that she needed some time away. As the train sped toward London, Amelia stared out the window, her mind racing. She felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. For the first time in days, she had a sense of purpose. She was no longer just a grieving widow, she was on a mission to uncover the truth.